Look at this guy. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? You're gonna fall off.
YouTube.com/sound.
Hey, what's up, Legion? My name is Sal, and this is another Expedition Log. In this episode, we're going to revisit a mall that I first covered 6 years ago in ExLog 17. As always, I hope all of you are well out there, having a good time all the time. I want to send a shout out and special thanks to my patrons and elite explorers for their continued support. Thank you all so much. I'd also like to thank everyone for all of the engagement following the Phase 7 premiere and for all the entries into the Rolling Acres tile giveaway. The winner was Mike from Anaheim, who I've already been in contact with and gotten the tile shipped out to. Mike, if you're watching, you should totally post a picture of the tile on your social media. Congratulations, bud. When I first opened the kimono of the tawdry Taubman 100 episodes ago, I had just reached 1,000 subscribers, and I never expected this mall to close. However, today it's time to button the kimono back up and sing a requiem for Taubman and his now shuttered property. For your consideration, I'd like you all to take a walk with me through the Lakeforest Mall in Gaithersburg, Maryland, one last time, featuring footage from every decade spanning 1987 to 2023, along with the absolutely chaotic last day of operation before we take a final look from outside the now gated and fenced-off property. But first, a word from our sponsor. That time, Paul Rudd was a spokesman for Super Nintendo. Enjoy.
Enjoy meeting new people. The paychecks aren't bad either.
Start your exciting career in the cable industry. Call 294-7730.
Cable TV. It's got a future. And now, so do ours.
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing feeling, when you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come: the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Malls were everything to everyone in the 70s and the 80s, especially in the rural areas. Fashion dominated the market, but you went to malls to make your core memories. Before the time of Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and the internet at large, families would take their children to malls so they could experience the wonder and spectacle that malls had to offer. Kids in the 80s lived for that moment. Mom, dad, or grandparents said they were going to the mall. Christmas was always a magical time for kids at the mall, dancing around the icy scenery, window shopping, and figuring out exactly what toys Santa should fill his endless satchel with in the back of his sled. If you were a kid in the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s, going to the mall was one of the most special times. And as a kid in the 90s, it was one of the most special times for me too, at the Ocean County Mall in Toms River, New Jersey. But as we got into the 90s, when the internet was an infant, we still needed to go to the mall, our sole social charlatan of absurdity, to witness things we'd never imagine. For instance, you might want to head to the mall to watch the Duncan Yo-Yo Company put on a show of all the yo-yo tricks you could bust out on the playground. Back then, YouTube wasn't around, so your only way to see this kind of stuff was to go to a place like the mall. But just look at this spectacle that's centered around yo-yos. This was a thing. This was actually a thing at the Lakeforest Mall.
Thank you all very much for coming and watching the show this afternoon.
As the 90s would slowly fade into oblivion and the Y2K crisis would implode when computers took over the collective hive mind, the whimsy gave way to the weird, and people went from being glued to malls to permanently fused to smartphones and the like. The 2000s were the advent of the shake weight cam, where everyone needed to share everything with everyone to gain a sense of validation, and the footage suffered greatly. This is footage from 2007 from the Lakeforest Mall. And as you can see, it was just awful. Phones had no stabilization back then, and camcorders were pretty awful. From the 70s and the 80s, with film cameras, we devolved in the 2000s. And I was no exception back in 2017, and while dead mall documentation had been around since the 2000s, it blew up in the mid-2010s. I filmed everything I could since 1998 with whatever camera I could find, including the garbage footage I captured in the beginning of the ExLog when I visited the Lakeforest Mall in episode 17 in the footage you're seeing right now. But it is important to capture the pedigree of history for malls because it can easily be lost in the vast ocean of content across the internet. And despite this footage not being the best quality, I am grateful that it exists and that we get to look back on it. But let's jump into the future. Welcome back to the Lakeforest Mall in Gaithersburg, Maryland, when I visited in 2022. I came through the mall because a couple of my friends from my Discord server were in the area, and we got some lunch at the mall. But as with other sequel episodes I've done, I'd like to go deeper into the historical narrative and events surrounding the rise and fall of the Lakeforest Mall. In 1966, Clarence, Milton, and Charles Kettler broke ground on expansive, unimproved farmland to develop the Montgomery Village. In an effort to make the land look far older and grown out than it really was, the Kettlers planted 10,000 mature pin oak trees with an expensive state-of-the-art machine that would dig out a deep foundation to plant the already dozens feet tall trees. They created a forest on farmland. But they didn't stop there, as they wanted their new village to sport a body of water. So using dredging equipment, they dug out 3 pits, which they would then dam up and fill with water. They created 3 lakes in the forest. If you stick around until the end of the episode, I have some amazing drone footage that really shows off the features of the lakes and the forest. The development of Montgomery Village, which opened in 1968, brought an immediately successful community to the Gaithersburg area, and it was equipped with stunning amenities such as boating facilities, tennis courts, bike paths, 3 baseball diamonds, 5 football fields, and 7 pools. The community was built on over 3,000 acres, and it even had its own humble little enclosed mall called the Village Mall. Back then, the average income for residents was just about $20,000 per year. Yep, just 20,000 bucks per year. Well, the neighborhood did incredibly well into the next decade, and the Kettler brothers were eyeing a new retail expansion in a nearby 130-acre lot. Instead of building their own retail offering, the Kettler brothers sold the land in the early 1970s to the Southfield, Michigan-based Taubman Company, which was founded in 1950 by then 26-year-old A. Alfred Taubman. Lore has it that he began the business with a $5,000 bank loan. It was announced that Taubman would be building a new mall on the land purchased from the Kettlers, which would be their first regional shopping mall in the Washington, D.C. area, joining other developers in constructing what the Washington Post called, quote, far-out malls, close quote. These were enclosed shopping malls that were over 10 miles outside of the Beltway, meant to service the surrounding communities of D.C., Maryland, and Northern Virginia. Started like taping off when stores closed, but they just gave up. H&M's not open. Macy's is open. I know. I don't think those are still open. Maybe a couple. Yeah, they totally gave up. This is where I bought T-Bone his pretzel. Or no, was it over here? Yeah, here it is, never mind. That's where I bought T-Bone the pretzel and lemonade. And that trash can is where he threw it away and told me that the pretzel represents my heart. Of the 130 acres that Taubman was set to build on, 20 were already set aside for what would eventually become downtown Gaithersburg, and another 10 were occupied by the 3 lakes created during the Montgomery Village construction. It was stated by the Taubman PR team that 800 bluegill guppies inhabited the bodies of water. The planned mall was scheduled to have 4 senior anchors and 125 inline tenants, which would be leased out when the mall was fully built. Taubman stated that they never lease non-anchor tenants before the mall is open because, quote, Mr. Taubman would figure we built it only half big enough. Normally it takes us about 2 years to fill it up, close quote. Construction began in the mid to late 1970s and would take over a year to complete, with the grand opening and ribbon cutting ceremony being celebrated on September 12, 1978. At the time of opening, senior anchors were Hecht's, Woodward and Lothrop, or Woody's, JCPenney, and Sears, who had opened 6 weeks earlier for a mall preview on July 29. Help me! Put me out of my misery! It's Morse code. There we are. There were about 35 inline tenants open at the mall's dedication, with dozens more that had unfinished storefronts. And the mall was the first to feature an indoor ice skating rink, which was situated where the food court is today, or was. In most malls up until this point, the developer would only provide heating and cooling to public spaces like courtyards, concourses, and bathrooms. Inline tenants would have to install their own furnaces and chillers on the roof for most malls up until that point, which made for extreme out-of-pocket costs for the tenant. But Taubman equipped all tenants with personal HVAC ducts, which would lower energy costs at the behest of slightly higher base rent. The Mexican tile lining the mall would stop at each storefront where crude concrete was left for inline tenants to clad at will. When you rented at Taubman, all you got was space and HVAC. You could do whatever you want with the storefront. Moving into the 1980s, the United States found itself in a devastating recession, mostly attributed to President Lyndon B. Johnson's guns and butter spending on the Vietnam War and the Federal Reserve's response with loose monetary policies in the 60s and 70s. Paul Volcker was appointed chairman of the Fed in 1979, mainly for his anti-inflation views, and was handed an unemployment rate of about 7.5% and an inflation rate at more than 14%. It was a scary time for the country, and there was uncertainty for both family households and large corporations. But things would get under control by 1982, and most major crises were averted.
That's not good.
Following the recession of 1980 to 82, there was an understandable slump in fine art sales. Founded in 1774, London, UK-based art broker Sotheby's was the undisputed world leader in selling fine art, affirming their place in 1964 after they acquired the New York-based Park Bernet Galleries. But in 1982, Sotheby's would fall out of first place and become second to fellow UK-based Christie's, founded in 1766. With Sotheby's in the red, the auction house began entertaining bids for their own company. On May 5, 1983, it was announced that Lord Cockfield, Trade Secretary and then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's fairly conservative UK government, blocked a $96.3 million USD takeover bid for Sotheby's by Saddlebrook, New Jersey-based General Felt Industries Incorporated. The bid was referred to the British government's Monopolies Commission, who had 6 months to review the bid, but ultimately denied it. Art experts and other key Sotheby's staff members from New York, Monte Carlo, Geneva, Zurich, Amsterdam, and Hong Kong threatened to resign en masse if the artistically inept New Jersey company gained control. The bid to take over Sotheby's by General Felt Industries worked out to $8.27 USD per share. At the time, Sotheby's was trading at about $4 USD on the London Stock Exchange, so the bid was generous. Another company entered a bid at the exact same amount 2 days before the General Felt bid was announced, but the second bidder was sealed. 1 month after the two bids were announced, it was revealed that the second company was none other than Taubman, who Sotheby's now called the White Knight bidder, and who the British would give their blessing to after negotiations around the sale price. Now, I don't know why a company that sells felt and related materials would want to purchase a fine art auction house, but let me briefly outline why Taubman was favored here. Adolf Alfred Taubman, who kindly requested to be addressed as Alfred, was a titan. This man, who, if you've been with my series for a while, you'll know that I'm incredibly fond of him and his malls, but he really was a legend in the art space. Among his credentials by the early 80s, Mr. Taubman owned A&W Root Beer and Restaurants. He was the majority owner of the Michigan Panthers of the U.S. Football League. He was a director of Manufacturers National Bank of Detroit, an obvious retail magnate with over 66 million square feet of operating mall space. But in the art community, he was also widely known to have an incredible personal collection, but he had his hands in the arts at a deep level. Mr. Taubman was a trustee of the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York, president of the Archives of American Art in Washington, D.C., a member of the Arts Commission Advisory Committee in Detroit, a trustee of the Michigan Foundation for the Arts, and to top it all off, he was a director for the Detroit Symphony Board. Taubman made a final bid of $10.50 USD per share to demonstrate his respect for the fine art space and to tell Sotheby's just how serious his interest in the company was. The $125 million USD bid was approved by the British government and Sotheby's by September 15, 1983, and by December, he had installed a new board and was running the auction house at full capacity. Taubman also reassured shareholders and customers that nothing would change from how the then 239-year-old auction house and all of its branches were run.
Awesome.
There's no pizza. There's no barbecue. Okay, so there's 2 places open in the actual food court. Charlie's Philly Steaks and the Cajun Grill. What do you think? Or the chicken joint. We could do the chicken joint. All right, chicken. Fried chicken sandwich?
Okay. Would you like a meal for the sandwich or
Yeah.
just a sandwich?
Yeah, I'll have a meal. Do you have a spicy one?
No, we don't have a spicy.
That's fine. Ah, they're paper straws. Alright, so when's this place? Alright, Pollo Campero, chicken sandwich. Plantains. Alright. Chicken sandwich. Pollo Campero. Gaithersburg, Maryland. It's good. One bite. Everybody knows the rules. On the chicken sandwich scale, it's like, I'll give it a 6.3. 6.3. It's pretty good. 6.3. A little greasy. Shit. All right, we need to amend the 6.3. They put bread and butter pickles on this thing. No. Bad move. Bad move, guys. Revising the score to a 2-1. Chicken's good. Pickles kill it. These plantains are dope, though, man. Okay, the plantains get like a 9-2. Sandwich is a 2-1. Overall, 6.3. All right, never mind. Never mind. I was wrong. I don't know what the F I'm talking about. Those are dill pickles. I think my tongue is broken or something, but those are dill pickles. Sandwich is back at a 6.3. The plantains are a 9.2. The overall meal is a 7.8 now. Let's get it. It's good. Pollo Campero. Food court. Gaithersburg, Maryland. Lakeforest Mall. There's like nothing here. 1 year after Taubman purchased Sotheby's, in 1984, the company purchased the Woodward and Lothrop chain for $220 million, which of course included the Woodies at Lakeforest Mall. Shortly after this acquisition, the Olympic-size ice skating rink closed, which was in this very spot where you're looking right now, and was replaced by a 5-plex neighborhood theater incorporated cinema. NTI Lakeforest 5-plex Cinema had its first run starting on January 8, 1985, opening with Mickey and Maude, Protocol, Beverly Hills Cop, Flamingo Kid, and Johnny Dangerously. Mickey and Maude was replaced 10 days later with Amadeus, one of my favorite movies, which would run through the rest of the month. I think this has been empty for a while. The Taubman Realty Group was founded in 1985 by Alfred Taubman and former executives of the Taubman Company. They received a $610 million loan from 2 General Motors pension trusts, which were given the option of becoming partner in the Taubman Realty Group. By August 3, 1992, the Taubman Realty Group took its first shot at selling the public on interest in their shopping malls, with an effort to raise $389 million at between $12.50 and $14.50 per share. Just really quick, this umbrella tree that I just gave you a close-up on, that's Alfred. That's in my living room right now, and stick with me through the episode because there's a huge amount of chaos coming when I show you the footage from 2023. But that tree, that very tree, that's in my living room. More on that later. Let's get back to the history. The IPO failed, with many critics complaining that Taubman and GM would own far too much of the properties and that the public should have a greater interest. A revised offering was released and accepted by November of 1992 when the Taubman Realty Group went public with 26.8 million shares of common stock at $11 per share, raising $295 million. The company would trade publicly on the New York Stock Exchange as Taubman Centers, Inc., which held the interest in the Taubman Realty Group, which owned the portfolio of 21 shopping centers across 9 states.
I feel like they just took all of the machines, like the quarter machines from the entire mall, and just put them all in here. Like they just didn't want to see them out in the mall, and now everything is just here. There's always one. Here it is. Never fails. This is more typical than Bath & Body Works in a dead mall. The shady massage parlor.
In January of 1994, Woodward and Lothrop filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The company cited its Taubman acquisition in the 80s as the reason, due to the buyout being financed with borrowed money, leaving the company bloated with incredible debt, and with dwindling sales in the early 90s, they just couldn't stay afloat. By May of 94, the NTI Lakeforest 5 was turned into the Cineplex Odeon Lakeforest 5. Then on June 21, 1995, it was announced that the Federated Department Stores was to purchase Woody's, which would also include the remaining Wanamaker's department stores. Taubman bought out the Wanamaker's chain in 1986 for about $180 million. Federated paid over $640 million for the 2 chains, and the remaining Wanamaker's and Woody's would remain open through their liquidations. 1 year later, a Lord & Taylor would open in the former Woody's space in 1996. Two years after the Lord & Taylor opened, Taubman would cut a deal with the General Motors Pension Trust in 1998 to sell off 10 malls and gain back full control of their remaining 15. Of the 10 malls sold to GM in the $1.43 billion deal, Lakeforest Mall was included. Taubman remained as the operator and manager for Lakeforest and continued to lease and maintain the property for a few more years.
There's something better than a pot of gold at Woodward and Lothrop. It's a store full of savings. 15 to 50% savings throughout every Woody's store during Woody's anniversary sale. Savings on spring fresh fashions for you, your home, and your family. Skirts, suits, dresses, shoes, sheets, tables, and TVs. They're all at 15 to 50% savings right now during the anniversary sale at Woodward and Lothrop, where the rainbow ends and the savings begin.
I thought the Louis Vuitton initials were LV. God, I still smell it. I can still smell the cologne coming out of this. Ugh, it's disgusting. Whenever you see new tile like this in a mall, so like there's the old tile, there's the new tile. Whenever you see something like this, it's always an indication that this used to be something else. Like, and I'm pretty sure this was the fountain in this area. So like, you can clearly see that it's probably a conversation pit / fountain. But whenever you see this new tile, that's definitely a clue that this was something else. Interesting. I can imagine that being a thing. So like, so a concert would happen here, and then the band, I guess, would wait in there. It's wacky.
At the turn of the millennium, the Cineplex Odeon Lakeforest 5 simply couldn't compete with the megaplex theaters around the county, and so it shuttered in January of 2000. In its place, which is where the ice skating rink used to be, a brand new 22,000 square foot food court called Cafes in the Forest opened. The 9-stall mixed eatery cost $5 million and had its grand opening in November of 2000. By this time, merchants noticed a drop in foot traffic, with over 30 storefronts that had white boards covering up their entrances. As I mentioned in the beginning, Lakeforest offered a more full-featured tenancy, but because of this, they charged tenants more per square foot. In the year 2000, lease rates at Lakeforest were between $80 and $100 per square foot. Nearby competition along the Rockville Pike corridor were offering much more attractive prices, between $20 and $30 per square foot. So tenants were fleeing to the competitor. It was around this time that Mr. Taubman would find himself in some pretty heavy legal trouble. Back in 1997, Sotheby's, Christie's, and many other prominent art dealers were subpoenaed as the two top auction houses were suspected to be engaged in a price-fixing scheme. Price fixing is the horizontal alignment of two companies to agree on the value of an item to their benefit. An example would be if McDonald's and Burger King both decided that a cheeseburger should be $15. Now, Sotheby's and Christie's did this with fine art, aggressively and greedily driving up the commission fees that they would see as a result of the higher sale price. This resulted in a massive class action lawsuit with more than 100,000 customers, totaling about $512 million. Sotheby's was fined $45 million and paid $156 million of their share of the class action settlement, along with an additional $30 million fine to settle a stockholder's suit. Then, in 2002, a judge convicted Alfred Taubman, then 78 years old, under antitrust charges and sentenced him to a year and 1 day in federal prison. The 1 day was added so that he could be eligible for a 15% sentence reduction with good behavior. And Mr. Taubman was a good boy, and he was released in about 9 months in May 2003. Despite being fully anchored and having decent restaurants such as Chi-Chi's, Ruby Tuesday, and Silver Diner, GM was looking to divest their majority interest in the Lakeforest Mall, along with 8 other Taubman malls around the country, probably because of the recent bad press. They began shopping around for buyers, and eventually struck a deal with the Mills Corporation, who would pay $1.03 billion for a 50% stake and management rights for the malls, totaling 9.6 million square feet in leasable area. The deal was announced on August 17, 2004, and finally closed a couple of months later on October 15. At the time, the mall was listed in SEC filings to be worth $271.1 million, but the 2004 assessment brought back a value of just $121 million, as sales were about $253 per square foot. The deal between GM and Mills marked the formal exit of Taubman for the Lakeforest Mall, but they would still be in operation for the other malls that they owned at the time. So 1 year has gone by since the relatively peaceful footage you just saw, and right now we're here back at the Lakeforest Mall on its very last day in operation before shuttering for good. Things got chaotic, to say the least. But let's get back to the historical narrative to find out just why this beautiful mall was forced to close. By 2005, the Lakeforest Mall was 89% occupied. Not bad. However, this was around the time when Federated Department Stores acquired the May Company for $11 billion on August 30, 2005. As a result of the merger, the newly titled May Company chose to liquidate all regional nameplates except Lord & Taylor and Macy's, and by September 2006, all remaining Hects were converted to Macy's, including the Lakeforest Mall location. The Mills Corp were hemorrhaging cash into January of 2007, as their Xanadu project near the Meadowlands was catastrophically over budget. In 1 year, Mills lost over $1 billion in market value, and they were looking for a bailout. By February of 2007, Mills agreed to be acquired for $1.64 billion by Simon Property Group and the Farallon Capital Management LLC hedge fund. Simon would pay $25.25 per share in cash and assume all debts that the Mills had. The entire deal came in at a value of $7.9 billion, which included all encumbrances and debts, and it closed on April 6, 2007. By 2010, the occupancy at the mall had fallen drastically to 60%, and Simon was about to default on their $141.1 million loan, of which they were 25% responsible for. A special servicer was sent in to manage the repayment for the loan. They paid the loan down to $138.7 million, but then they were about to default again, so another special servicer was sent in. The loan finally defaulted in 2011, but the servicer stipulated that they could sell the mall to satisfy the debt, and in late August of 2012, Stamford, Connecticut-based 5 Mile Capital Partners bought the Lakeforest Mall for just over $100 million. With Simon exiting the mall, Chicago-based Urban Retail Properties stepped in to manage. 5 Mile announced an ambitious $20 million renovation project, but with each of the 4 anchors owning their own property, all 4 of them shut the project down. In 2013, 5 Mile spent $1.3 million in a diluted renovation plan which only saw the removal of the super rad fountain and center conversation pit, which they just concreted in and tiled over, and they made some various cosmetic changes around the mall. It was a BS renovation project. And in just a few moments, we're gonna head into the back rooms just to do a little bit of pillaging. Not the mall guts like we were just in. We're gonna head into a hole in the wall. And when we come out, everything is going to change.
Let's take a look. Oh. Ah. Okay, I'll take it.
The second I left this tiny back room, it felt like I no-clipped into another dimension. When I first got to the mall, everything was peaceful and quiet. People were floating around, taking pictures and reminiscing quietly. But all of a sudden, the entire mall devolved into absolute chaos, with people pillaging fixtures and signs, carpets, cleaning supplies, and everything they could get their hands on. Kids were shredding the conversation pit quarter pipes and went full goblin mode. Security was nowhere to be found, and everyone seemingly took advantage.
The final package being delivered. Check that out. Not a care in the world.
Get him! Get him! Go get him!
Taking stuff all over the place. You just deliver the final package? That's crazy, man. So I'm here at the Lakeforest Mall, March 31, 2013. And this is the mall's last day of operation. And I gotta tell you, it's like the Wild West in here right now. There's people digging plants out of the planters, pulling full trees out to their car, which I did too.
All right, so it's March 31st, 2023, and Sal has morphed into a ficus, and he is now currently pilfering the ficus as we exit the Lakeforest Mall. Off to the night wing it goes. You know, this could be a new filming technique where you hide yourself in a plant while you film.
Just a little keepsake, I guess. Not sure if the door's gonna close, we'll see. Nice. Here. There's just a ton of people taking pictures and video, and it's like a funeral, but more of a celebration. But people are sending this place off, and tomorrow will be locked. And our friend Ace showed up from Buffalo. Welcome to Maryland, Ace. Do you have any final words? The massage parlor was a 2 out of 10. Oh man. After I grabbed the tree and got it in my car, Ace and I decided to take a stroll around the mall to escape the mayhem. But when we got outside, all we found was more mayhem.
Good.
Look at this guy. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? You're gonna fall off. See you, man. All right, good luck. There he goes. There he goes. What is he doing?
This guy really don't want to leave him alone.
Oh, he's turning? Where's he going? See you, dude.
Yeah, I work. Parker?
Parker?
Yeah, I watch your videos.
Do you?
Yeah.
With the mom?
Grandma. Yes, yeah. Okay.
Hi, Grandma.
It was 20 minutes to 70. You gotta bring me to the mall. The guys at the mall.
Oh, yeah?
Then you run over here.
Well, if you know me, you must know Sale then.
Yeah, I've seen your other video. Yeah.
Good to see you, bud.
Good to see you.
I
Yeah.
gotta rush over here to get him over here.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming out. Good to meet you.
You got your phone on? You want to take a picture real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
I can take it for you guys.
Oh, thanks.
Here.
Let me get Grandma in there.
No, don't get me.
You don't want to be in it? There you go, bud. Ace, don't eat shit. Oh. You were 2 seconds away. Crime plagued Lakeforest Mall in the mid-2010s, with fatal shootings and stabbings occurring around the mall property, and I think in this spot right here, behind the mall. Locals cite the MS-13 gang as responsible for the bloody aggression, and they would even order hits on those they thought were in rival gangs, but sometimes it turned out they would just be normal shoppers. This frightened the absolute hell out of the residents, and word spread like wildfire across the internet. By 2017, I showed up for the first time to find about 36 non-regional brands as inline tenants, compelling me to label Lakeforest the tawdry Taubman. That same year, the mall was assessed for $40.2 million, and 5 Mile just stopped paying the mortgage. The bank put the mall up for auction, and US Bank purchased Lakeforest for a meager $19.1 million on August 22, 2017. Petrie Richardson Ventures tried to buy the mall, but that all fell apart into 2018. Yeah, I think this is like a break area.
This is where Wendy sat and drank her Lipton iced tea.
Look at this. Ooh, I don't know if this is like structurally sound.
Well, at least you know you can get your COVID test.
Is there a COVID test? God. Man.
So oh, give it to me, Daddy. Oh.
Jeez. In 2019, we would begin to see the mall really start to fall apart with a mass anchor exodus. The first to go was this very JCPenney that had some of the most unique and intricate, amazing brickwork I've ever seen on an anchor. This Penny's closed on July 5, 2019. The next anchor to go was this Lord & Taylor, which closed 2 months later on September 15. With the mall still in the hands of US Bank, they wanted to unload this property before it depreciated any further. They shopped it around at market value, where the assessment had fallen into the $20 million range.
They found a buyer in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina-based WRS Real Estate Investments after the Lord & Taylor closed. WRS secured an $83.9 million loan from PCCP LLC and used $22.5 million of that loan to purchase the mall core, the ponds, and the forest conservation. They detailed a tentative redevelopment project, but they couldn't make any moves until they owned all 4 anchor spaces, and with 2 remaining, they just had to wait it out.
Forest.
The Sears, which is just to our left, would close on December 1, 2019, leaving just the Macy's to anchor the Lakeforest Mall.
According to Ace, it's mating season, and that's the male protecting the female. Oh God, it's looking right at us. All right, we're cool. We're gonna go. We're going.
As we take our final walk trepidatiously around these murderous geese in heat with nuclear cloacas, we'll head back into the mall to witness its final moments and finish up the historical narrative.
Everything's fine, bud. No. We're good. We're good. There's a little bit on the underside. Oh, what's up, buddy?
As 2020 rolled around, we all know what happened, and it did no favors for Lakeforest. Like most, if not all, other malls, Lakeforest closed for a while and then reopened. But the damage was terminal, and the new owner was hungry for change, and its death was inevitable.
Security's here and he's getting order. It's the Wild West, man. People are just...
Security, please exit the mall premises.
I can only imagine that WRS had partnered with Gaithersburg and huddled with the owners of the 4 anchor spaces to expedite the exodus. Through 2021, the mall would continue to lose tenants, but there was still a breath of life through the concourses. By June of 2022, I showed up to grab lunch with a couple of my buddies from DMOD, and as we walked around, forgetting the fact that there was really nothing left in there, it still felt like a relatively normal day at a dead mall. There were a handful of stores open, and we were able to get some decent food. But that's really all you can expect from most malls these days, so I've been conditioned to it, and I'm alright with it. On February 28, 2022, WRS finalized the purchase of all 4 anchor spaces. They paid $20.5 million for Sears, $6 million for JCPenney, $12 million for Lord & Taylor, and $14 million for Macy's, which would remain open for just a bit longer. WRS then announced on October 20 that Lakeforest Mall would be demolished by 2024 and outlined parts of their unfinished redevelopment plan. Then on January 4, 2023, Macy's announced that the store would begin liquidation a few days later on January 9, and the store finally closed on March 18, 2 months later. I showed up again with a larger crew from my Discord server on March 31, the final day the mall would be open to the public to witness the most hectic mall closure I've ever experienced. It was beautiful, and it was mayhem, and I'll cherish that memory forever. And I'm incredibly grateful to have this footage. I would say 99% of the time, I go to the mall by myself, but it really is a lot better with friends. The mall is a social experience, and when you're there with people that you like, it's just way better than going alone. So I really appreciated all the company that day. Thanks, DMOD. If you want to join DMod, just go to discord.gg/DMod. I'll see you there.
What the hell was that?
While the Lakeforest Mall was a thing. I actually got to go downstairs to see the announcer for this mall, and he did such a wonderful job announcing at this mall for so long, and I learned from him, and I'm going to have dinner with him soon. He's going to be such a nice boy to have dinner with. I'm going to eat with him. I can't wait to show you all the next ExLog. We're going to go back up to Cincinnati. I can't wait. I love you. Let me know if any of these geese with the crazy cloaca holes pooped on you, because they wanted to attack me and Ace, but we didn't hurt them and they didn't hurt us. So it was such a lovely time with all my friends and Sal and DMod in the Discord server, and I can't wait to see you all soon. I gotta go now. I gotta poop. Bye!
I believe this is the last store that remained open.
It's always sad watching tenants pack their things and close their shops for the last time, like this lady who's closing up the Jackson Hewitt, or the guys closing up the kiosks. I've seen it too many times at too many malls that are closing, and to me that's the worst part. The people losing their jobs when a mall closes is the worst part, and it always will be.
Yeah, all this is residue from the fire extinguisher. And somebody popped it. It's right here. Yep, that's where my tree used to live.
I just want to throw something out there. It's worth noting that the tree that I saved from Lakeforest, it was gonna die. It wouldn't have been sold, and it would have wound up in a pile of rubble with everything else. I'll show you all the tree after the credits.
So I'm inside the conversation pit right now, and they've been announcing on the PA that the mall is closing soon, I think in 15 minutes. A security guard intercepted me. He's been really cool, but I told him that I'm looking for Ace right now, and I'm just trying to bide my time, wait the last few minutes so that they can lock me out.
Attention Lakeforest Mall, the mall will be closing in 5 minutes.
Has the golden era of the enclosed shopping mall come and gone? Are malls done for good? I'm not sure. Time will tell. I do think we'll always have malls in some capacity, but it'll never be like it used to be. Malls are not the social epicenter anymore. Everyone's glued to their phones. Everyone's glued to Facebook. The more we live online, the less we need malls. So if you're a fan of malls, let's go out to the mall. Because we're just going to see closures like Lakeforest more and more. And I think that's really sad.
Damn it, Ace.
So I got my final look at the JCPenney courtyard, which happens to be my favorite, and I bid farewell to my DMod buddies after a bit of badinage and made my way to head out of the front door. The mall had technically been closed for about 15 minutes at this point, but the manager was walking around with us as we took our final lap, and he was super cool. And all I could think about walking past what used to be the timeout zone was T-Bone. That guy from ExLog 17 who offered to tell me all about the mall if I bought him a steak dinner, who then settled for a pretzel from Auntie Anne's and then threw it in the trash can and said that was my heart. That whole thing was wild. Go watch ExLog 17 for the full story if you must. The footage is kind of rough, but most of my beginning episodes are kind of rough. So take them with a grain of salt, and let's all appreciate how far we've come. I came back a few months after the mall closed to take a nice walk around the forest. The day I came though, the air quality index was over 300 because of wildfires in Canada blowing the gnarly dust monsters south. That was the day that New York City was orange. But when I saw the fence and realized that I'd actually never see the mall again, I wanted to memorialize the event by going for a perimeter run to get this footage you're seeing. My lungs were dead because of the dust, but whatever. It was a fun run, and the footage I got is rad. And if you must know, it's over 1.5 miles to run around the mall, and I did it in 12 minutes. I'm excited to see what WRS does with this property, because the location is prime, and it's situated in an area that can service so many communities. Their plan tentatively included details about relocating the Lakeforest Transit Hub to Russell Avenue, a mixed-use reimagining of the area with townhouses, retail, a movie theater, and parking garage, along with finally cleaning up those disgusting ponds and constructing a boardwalk that spans all three. I think that would be a pretty rad way to incorporate the lakes and the forest at the former Lakeforest Mall. So we'll see what actually comes through with those plans. But I like it. I like the plan. I've seen some mixed opinions on Alfred Taubman's incarceration in news articles and discuss groups and comment sections, and to round out this episode, I'd like to give my 2 cents on the man himself. He went to jail for getting into cahoots with a rival auction house and setting higher prices on art, so they both got larger commission fees. Here's the thing though, the man knew art. He knew the industry, and if somebody has to be in charge of putting a price on art, I think he was a fantastic candidate. Was it shady and deceptive to the public? Absolutely. Was it wrong? Yes. But the people buying the kind of artwork that fetched millions of dollars weren't really in a spot to complain about a few extra bucks here and there. They had the money to spare. But Taubman was a true patron saint of the arts, and I stand firmly behind him and his actions. When he died in 2015, his service was held at the Congregation Sharet Zedek in Southfield, and members of the Detroit Symphony played Barber's Adagio to an incredibly large audience of prominent figures from around the world. Taubman was and is respected to this day, and I firmly believe that his incarceration was BS and it was just to appease the rich. Let me know what you all think. I'd like to thank all of you for watching my video. Lakeforest Mall has been pretty consistently on my mind for the last 6 years, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity to deliver its Requiem to all of you. It's such a shame that this beautiful mall had to be closed and demolished, but it's becoming more common, and documenting these places to preserve what once was for future generations is more important now than ever. If any of you have stories from your time at Lakeforest, please let me know down in my comments section or my social media. I'd especially like to hear from all of you in my Discord server, home of DMod. Just head to discord.gg/DMod, answer a couple of questions from moderator, and you're in. Thanks again to all of my patrons, elite explorers, super chatters, and everyone that contributes to me and my series. Your support makes the ExLog what it is, and I'm grateful. Please keep an eye on my website, salvatoreamadeo.com, for the merch section. That'll be dropping in a few days, and you'll be able to pick up some sweet Dead Mall stuff. I'll be back soon with ExLog 118, which kicks off a brand new Cincinnati tour, and you're not going to want to miss that. But until then, please stay safe out there, everyone. Take care of yourselves, and have a fantastic day.
Enjoy meeting new people. The paychecks aren't bad either.
Start your exciting career in the cable industry. Call 294-7730.
Cable TV. It's got a future. And now, so do ours.
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing feeling, when you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come: the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Hey Legion, are any of you still there? Let me show you my plant. I saved it from a dead mall. Check this out. There was a label inside the pot tangled up in the super dry roots that clued me into its origin. It was first planted on June 23, 2003, and grown at the Sunset Hills Foliage Nursery. The tree began as a 10-inch arboricola bush, otherwise known as an umbrella tree, and I'm pretty sure the mills came through to change the planters around the conversation pits. The dates work out, but there's really no way for me to know how many other plants were brought in by mills.
There's new life right there. Alfred is doing very well.
Simon could have also brought in the new plants, but I'm just going off of the original date of 2003 on the label. So yeah, it's either Mills or Simon. Thanks to whichever of you installed it. It looks great in my living room, and it's alive.
Huh? New growth. This is Alfred Jr. Roots. Awesome. So we'll see how this one does.
Thanks again for watching, everyone. I'll see you soon in ExLog 118. Take care.